I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Gary Webb. I am an investigative journalist, and in 1996, I wrote a series of stories entitled Dark Alliance, which was about CIA involvement in drug trafficking.
I knew a man who once said death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.
We've both been skull and bone with the secret society. It's so secret we can't talk about it. What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go on.
Sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322.
I sad duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague Tim Russert collapsed and died early this afternoon.
I may die in this cell tonight or in the arena tomorrow. I am a slave. What possible difference can I make?
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
What the fuck is up? Welcome to another Already Dead, your favorite weekly live call-in conspiracy variety show. Today we are joined by Jules, and as always I have my co-host Austin with me, and it's me, Jose Galison. Let's fucking get into it. We're going to probably get a little weird today. I would assume, Jules' sphere is very much cults, Anunnaki, secret societies. You're more in that realm, and I'm here for it. I've been very much into your Anunnaki series lately. I don't know why Anunnakis I've always found interesting. I used to be like the ancient alien guy that was really into that shit. Although I'm not necessarily like sold in the ancient alien theory per se, although I think maybe it could be some variations of it. But it here's our homie
Top Lobsters into the chat, dude.
Exactly, yeah. And you know what? I think that there is something to the Nephilim angle. If, you look at, if we get an Anunnaki, if you're really, it's just a matter of like what prism you're looking at it through. If you're looking at it through, some fucking foreign ancient religion, then it's just one of their gods. If you're looking at it from the Hebrew perspective or a Jewish perspective, like an ancient Jewish perspective, yeah, those are fucking Nephilim. So yeah. So it's a pleasure to have you here, and we're I guess we'll get into it. I mean, I know, Austin, do you have anything you want to bring up before we dig into Anunnaki?
Definitely. So do you go by Jules or Julian? What do you prefer?
Jules, man. Yeah,
Jules,
you just call me Jules.
That's what it seemed like. Okay.
Yeah,
I
dude.
just wanted to make sure, brother. And it's nice to meet you officially for sure, man. Like,
yeah, man. No, it's great to meet y'all too. And thank y'all again for having me on, man.
Of course, brother.
I always watch the show, or I try to catch it every Tuesday, but sometimes you got other shit going on. But
right.
Y'all are definitely one of the shows that I watch on a regular basis. So this is an honor.
Oh hell yeah, dude! I've been meaning to have you on for a while. It's just a matter because we only do like the kind of the format I'm going for here is like every other week a guest, roughly. So it's like, and then I always procrastinate and forget to get a guest. But I've been meaning to. You've been on the short list anyways, and then it was last minute, so I just hit you up, and I was like, oh shit, well we'll get him on. So. Because I've been wanting to dig into some Anunnaki stuff for a while. Because I don't know, I've been on a weird tear lately, where I've been digging into like ancient religion stuff. I know you consider yourself Christian, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Funny thing about me, I was born a Jew, right? But hear me out.
Jew, always a Jew.
Hear me out. So my grandmother converted because my grandfather was adopted by a Jewish family. I look nothing like.
All right, I changed my mind. No, I'm just
Oh
kidding.
shit! I was like, no way.
Oh man. And so my dad, he never converted. He's an atheist, I'm pretty sure, but he was raised in the Church of Christ. So I was raised Jewish until I was 13. I never had a bar mitzvah, and I'm happy that I didn't, to be honest with you. It's a fucking weird ritual in my opinion. But I basically heard my mom's name in a bunch of people's mouths throughout the temple, because single mother, we had a woman that was living with us because my dad didn't pay child support. Big surprise. So I just walked out one day. I was like, fuck this religion, fuck this church. I don't believe in God. And growing up in Jackson, Mississippi, I went to a 98% black high school. So I don't know, it's probably not the best place to grow up without God. Poorest state in the country. The homicide rate this year, I mean, it's skyrocketed since last year, man. But yeah, I lived my teenage years and early adulthood and just, I guess you could say, total sin. Sold drugs, did drugs. I've experienced the after effects of both of those, man. It's a fucking terrible thing. Got married, had my son when I was 21. Married my best friend. I've known her since we were 13. Yeah, something not a lot of people get, but
special, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And so at a certain point when my son was like 3 or 4, got in a pretty bad car wreck, me and my wife, and should not be here right now from how the car wreck happened. I flipped off the interstate and the car exploded afterwards. It is bad. Went to treatment. Yeah, got my shit together. Came to Christ not through the church at first, probably, but I kind of was drawn closer and closer to Christ through learning about the occult and the esoteric. It showed me that there's a lot more here than just us, like in this realm, in this dimension, and so I noticed that the closer relationship that I had with, you could say, the Holy Spirit, life got easier, mentally, emotionally. You see things start manifesting in your life. I got great job that we're not going to talk about. You know,
Go ahead and dox yourself.
Yeah, dude. It's a small fucking town, man. That wouldn't work out well.
I do find it interesting that you, for one, I know if you know the lore of like Anunnaki shit, it is kind of interesting for someone to be also religious or Christian particularly, and I guess so I do want to pick at that. But I didn't know you grew up a Jew, and I find that interesting. I grew up Christian. I'm not Christian now. I consider myself like an agnostic atheist. I don't know there is or isn't a God. I don't believe in one necessarily. So I guess you could call me agnostic, whatever. I mean, I'm of the opinion those are two different questions, whether you're agnostic, whether you're atheist. So I just say both.
Definitely,
agnostic is just a matter of like what you know,
not knowing, right? Because Gnostic or gnosis means knowing.
Yeah. So you'll never hear me say there's no God, because I don't find that to be a claim I could support. You know, just like on the opposite side, I don't feel like I can support it the other way either. But I don't hold it against anyone who is. I mean, that's cool. But I did, growing up religious myself, I kind of have these impressions of what Judaism was. Because when you grow up Christian, you just think it's just it's literally what you believe, but minus New Testament. So everything the same, but minus Jesus. But then once you start digging into it a little bit more, you realize, like, as you mentioned, with rituals and stuff, and I guess, Christianity and Catholicism and other versions kind of have their own rituals as well. But there just seems to be something almost more like pagan, or just seems wrong, especially if you're looking at it through the lens of Christianity, of some of the stuff in Judaism, which, I mean, you can get deep into the lore in that and how it got corrupted over time in certain areas, but it's just weird that, like, somehow you end up with Christianity has a very different vibe. Because if you had Christianity and you just took away the New Testament, and you just went by the Old Testament, it would still be very different from what Judaism is. Like, from my understanding of, from when I grew up in Christian school and everything. But I know, for example, like, with Judaism, what is it? Is it the Passover, or one of the major, religious holidays? They give out fucking sacrifices to Azazel, which is like a fucking demonic being.
Yeah,
like, and it's just, there's lots of little things like that, which I think it does have something to do with, like, I think their religion did get probably corrupted somewhere along the line. I guess I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, because you did grow up in Judaism. So, like, is that something you noticed? Is that weird now that because you're kind of have the opposite now, where you're, I guess, kind of in the Christian world, but you grew up in Judaism. So it's just, to me, it's bizarre. Although I think there is a lot to the fact that a lot of Jews are just cultural Jews, and they just will, like, observe the holidays.
That's kind of what my mom was and stuff.
Yeah.
We weren't Orthodox. Like I said, my dad wasn't Jewish, and my grandmother converted, so it didn't come down the maternal line or whatever. So, wish I could find who my real family was through my grandfather's lineage, man. That'd be cool. I do know that I'm 78% Irish. Sent my DNA into 23andMe, so they probably cloned me.
Into the CIA and DARPA.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I had gotten it for Christmas or something, and my mother-in-law was like, "Yeah, let's send it off." I was like, "Oh, you send it somewhere." I didn't think about it. I'm
Right.
retarded sometimes. So, I'm German, Irish, and English, I think. So 0%. I'll throw that out there for y'all kicking me out again.
But back to the question, like, what are your thoughts? Is that something you recall, or is it like you guys were just kind of like, the kind of the Christians that show up on Easter and maybe the occasional Sunday type deal?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you guys were? So you don't even have a deep impression of some of the weird shit, the differences?
I do, because, when you grow up around that culture, you go to a bunch of bar mitzvahs, you go to a bunch of high holiday services, and you see the Orthodox Jews, and I never understood. To be honest with you, I always ended up, like, creating a war in my mind, or like daydreaming somewhere during services, falling asleep. It's very almost ancient in a way. Like, looking back on it, when I was a kid, it was always very cold in there, and very just God was not present. It almost seemed, and like I said, you could tell that the people who I was around probably weren't aligned with anything positive, because of the way they talked or treated my mom, man. She really put a lot of her faith into Judaism. She still does. I don't think it does much for her. And I also told her that she went to church with us, and but that's her own journey. I can't make anything happen. But yeah, man. So when you look at Judaism, and you look at the ancient sects of Judaism, you see that there's people that follow the Torah and people that follow the Talmud. It is a theory, I guess you could say, of mine, that the Talmudic Jews pray to a deity named Marduk, who is the Azazel archetype that you had spoke of.
Mm-hmm.
And when you read, excuse me, the Sumerian stories, because these stories, they're just translations too. So you have to have a lot of discernment while reading it. It could also seem like a fairy tale at the same time, or like a fantastical story. But when you put these stories from the Bible, from the Old Testament, next to these other stories from these ancient civilizations, they almost align perfectly. And with the etymology, you get a whole nother aspect of it. You can trace these words over time. And so it kind of just, if you know what to look for, and I'll give y'all plenty of examples as we go along, you can kind of tell what's going on. And I think at the very top, we've all been, well, not all of us, because we're all not Jews, but certain peoples have been basically tricked in a way to worshiping the Most High, and they're not. They're going through all these prayers and all these rites and just new age rituals, basically. And the same thing with Catholicism. And they don't even know who they're praying to half the time. They say all these names, and it's just like, you know who El is? It's crazy, dude.
Yeah,
it really is.
Real quick, to go back to this Azazel thing, I do want to point out for the audience. I mean, I don't know if anyone read that or if it said there, but it's during Yom Kippur that they release. They sacrifice 2 goats and essentially put their sins on it, kind of like the chicken thing.
I was about to ask: is that the same time that they put their sins in?
I don't know if it's the same time as when they do the chickens. I think that's a different thing, but I don't know. I don't know if this is like a higher level of that, because it's like a chicken to a goat. Goat's a little bit more valuable than chicken. But the idea is they sacrifice 2 goats. I think or maybe, I don't know if it's sacrifice or not. Essentially, I think they give one to God and they give one to Azazel. And I don't know if they necessarily get into this in Judaism, but in Enoch, Azazel is essentially, they go more into it. He's essentially someone who gave us forbidden knowledge. So he's a fallen angel. So he's a demon in a way, but he's not necessarily bad. It's kind of like it's not clear, is what it seems like. But what was I gonna? I did, when reading that, it reminded me of, God, who is the motherfucker in Greek mythology who gave fire?
Prometheus.
There you go. So he's almost like a Prometheus character, and it's like, and I think this etymology idea, especially in light of Anunnaki, is kind of this idea that if you start looking at different religions and different archetypes and seeing so much crossover between them, and then you follow it back, as far back as you can, and you kind of get to the original stories. And that kind of gets into the Anunnaki. If you look at Judaism, this might be a little bit, I don't know where you stand on this, but I know if you look into kind of Jewish history, it seems like it seems to be the scholarship points to that essentially that Yahweh was one deity within a group of deities. And I guess you could understand that as like, well, that was the true deity, and somehow that got grouped in together. I don't know. I guess that was the Canaanites, I believe, around that time, and I believe that's where you get Baal and some other characters. And then that's when you start fleshing it back from there. You can start seeing other similar archetypes with like the Anunnaki, with Sumerian, religion or whatever. So I don't know. I just find it interesting that there's all these crossovers between all these religions, and it seems to be that there are base characters that these are based off if you go back far enough. I mean, maybe there's something even before the Sumerian stuff. I mean, that's just kind of as far back as we can see. But yeah, I guess I do, before we get into the Anunnaki, I just kind of want to know, how do you square your understanding of Anunnaki with your belief in Christianity? Because I'm just kind of curious. I mean, are you taking because I guess I could kind of understand it a little bit if you were taking like a Gnostic one, or if you were looking at them as fallen angels, as if they were like the bad guys or demons or something, or maybe some other way. I mean, because if you had a Gnostic interpretation, I could see how you could see them as being like, what is it, the spirits and principalities or whatever, and then
they were the fallen angels. They were the fallen angels of Enoch. My understanding is that Christ is a new covenant with humanity, and his baptism and spilling of his blood into the earth was alchemical, as well as it was basically the transformation of our blood as well, through him, through the Christ. People leave "the" out when they say Christ, and I think that's very important, because it's a state of consciousness that this man reached, right? That he was sent here to be this sacrificial lamb for the creator of the universe. And even the Anunnaki, they refer to a creator of all. And they know when they're down here masquerading as fucking gods and mating with earth women and pouring their semen into everybody, they know they're doing wrong. And you have some of them, mainly the younger ones, that go a little harder and start to have sex with a lot of earth women and start to populate the earth with the Nephilim. There were many tribes of giants. I was actually at church, and we had this preacher there who was a prophet. He considered himself a prophet, and he prophesied over me and my son, and said some remarkable things that I didn't know how he knew. That he was talking about the giants, and he was referring to them as archetypes. But I was sitting there going like, no, these are tribes of giants, you know? But yeah, so there's generations of these Anunnaki. Before we start talking about it, and you probably know this if you said that you have been watching my show, what is it? 3,600 years on Earth is 1 year where they're from. Planet Nibiru or Planet X, and a lot of flat Earth people, they hate the idea of the Anunnaki because they don't believe in space. Space is fake and gay, and I get it. That's fine, man. Like, I completely get it.
I wasn't saying it, bro, but I am curious though. Like, I was thinking the exact same thing I was going to ask you, because I just find it interesting as far as how you grew up, how you were raised. I'm curious your take on the Sabbateanism, Sabbatean Frankists, like that Jose and I have talked about a few times just briefly, but especially I've heard, say what you want about David Icke. I'm curious what you think of kind of, I've heard him kind of put it in terms of like, it almost falls under the accelerationist theory that Jose and I talk about as well. That seems to fall in line with all the satanic doctrines that, are like overlapping threads within the cults that just, it's kind of an extraordinary thing on its own, right? Also
you can call it aeonic change, you can call it accelerationism if you want to be more stuffy and scholarly. But yeah, it's kind of all the same. But go on.
Exactly. And the idea, at least in the terms that I've heard it put by David Icke and others is kind of like basically that like Zionism, Nazism, and communism were all three kind of, essentially Sabbateanism was the foundation of all three of them, right? And I heard this it put in those terms recently, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that, because I found it kind of, at the very least, like when the primary goal tends to be like infiltrating various religions, as well as political power structures, it's like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I'm curious, what do you have to say about that?
I definitely think that ties into the worship of these lesser deities. I mean, I think every pantheon of these entities that you see throughout time, it all stems from the same one. And you can call them demons, because I think maybe in a way, like, what if every religion in the world is just worshiping a deity, and we're just being fed lies every which way, dude. Because you have a lot of people who claim to be Christians that aren't really Christians. It's the same everywhere. And we're actually about to do an episode soon on one of the deities where the word sin originated from. And my co-host Adrian West, he has a theory that this is where the Islamic religion comes from, is the worship of a son of the Torahic, I guess that's the word for it, the Torah worshiping or whatever, not the Talmudic, but the Torahic God. And we could be wrong, but that is El Yahweh, Jehovah. However, I'm pretty sure Jehovah is a term used maybe for the source of creation as well, and these titles are just basically jacked and used for subversion. What these occultists have been doing, taking all this ancient knowledge and subverting it, using it for an evil purpose. But yeah, so there's blatant deity worship on all sides, man.
Well, the interesting thing about Sabbateanism is it was a messianic Judaic movement, and there have been a handful of those. Obviously, Christianity was one of them, but you have the Chabad Lubavitch ones that exist now. Some of them are messianic, some of them aren't. But then obviously then you have this, and I think there's a certain verse that I guess depending on how you interpret it, you can interpret it as essentially saying that, in the time of the Messiah, it essentially, flips the law, which I do find it interesting because, with Christianity, it does, depending on how how you understand Christianity, it has some function of some interaction with the old covenant or new covenant or changing the law or something along those lines. And the Sabbateanism understand it as essentially a flipping, and that when the Messiah came, it flipped the law essentially. So now what's good is bad and what's bad is good, and it actually encouraged them to worship not demons, but I guess demons would be one way to interpret it, but other deities. So it is kind of interesting that you can have someone who is essentially, I guess in a certain sense, of Judaism, and they're essentially worshiping Baal or Moloch or whatever deity, and that was kind of encouraged because it was their belief that would essentially create some sort of change that would bring on the Messiah, or it could be when the Messiah was already there. So this is also a similar concept of like aeonic change that you see in things like O9A. Or accelerationism, which is like how the feds kind of interpret like what O9A is doing, a more stuffy way of understanding it if you're looking at it from a non-occult type way. But yeah, it's essentially the same function is served depending on how you interpret it. But I don't know, I just find it interesting that that's a way for them to understand. And also with Sabbateanism, they would worship other, they would infiltrate other religions while still believing in their prime religion, but also in a certain weird, fucked up way, also being of the other religion because they were open to worshiping other deities. So it's bizarre.
And they could do this on a large scale too. Mm-hmm. Thus getting more people to worship these lesser deities through these greater names. And all these ancient occultists, they all believe in duality. And you could say that duality is a real thing, but maybe not on the spectrum that they're looking at it on.
As above, so below, yeah.
Yeah. Because early Christian religions, the Gnostics, obviously, the Cathars, I believe, the Essenes, they all kind of practice duality as well. So, yeah, man, it's something that you got to do a lot of research into, and like I said, have some kind of discernment, because you can get caught up. And I've had to reassess what I think a lot, especially when dealing with the Anunnaki. But like I said, the more stories that I read, whether it be the Book of Enoch, I mean, you can read the Necronomicon if you feel up to it, and that it's full of a lot of deities. They're all Sumerian deities, and that's considered fiction or whatever. But you see some of those stories in even older texts, in these other Sumerian texts. But you basically have two sides, and there's always two sides to everything. Again, back to duality. But these two sides were these two families from the same family. But my co-host, again, he brings into the picture that if they were from another star system somewhere, if the Earth is flat, maybe they broke through the firmament, or maybe they made the firmament. Because, like I said, you got someone who's in the flat Earth, and they immediately don't care about anything that you talk about with the Anunnaki. And like I said, if you're a flat earther, that's fine, man. I have a lot of friends that are flat earthers. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't just discount these stories, because they can still exist, just in another situation. They could be interdimensional. They probably are. Yeah.
They would lend itself to being more supernatural, because kind of what I was getting at before, if you're looking at things, if you are believe that the Anunnaki are a thing to one degree or another, it does lend itself to being, a certain sense, I guess you can understand it as supernatural, but it lends itself to being more real, more substantive, more, because, as you mentioned with like space, it's like the idea that these were like beings that came from somewhere else, as opposed to heaven. And now I guess you could interpret heaven as being some other planet or something.
Another dimension, maybe.
Yeah, or another dimension. But I would say, if you are looking from a flat earth one, that would just, if anything, that would actually make it easier to understand, because now, like you said, it's just like that, they have to be supernatural beings in your belief. If you're to believe that the earth is flat and that space is fake and gay, it's like, well, then they came from, heaven or wherever the fuck else.
Yeah, well, there's some flat earthers who believe in the idea of the outer lands, that outside of the ice wall, there's all these other lands where the Anunnaki came from. So you do have some flat earthers that do believe it. However, I don't know. I've never seen any pictures of the outer lands. So I mean, they may not even be real, but I mean, I think it's pretty cool to think about. It's pretty cool to consider.
Right.
But you could say the same thing about the Anunnaki, man. Like they may be faking gay. I don't know. Like I said, my opinion can change overnight. But I just looked into them more and more, and before I knew it, it had been like 4 or 5 years, and I was like, oh, I got to start a podcast because I had already been listening to Tinfoil Hat for a while, and yeah, man, I didn't really think at the time that this would be what I would talk about on like every episode I do, but that's what it's turned into, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. That's awesome, because I keep figuring out more and more. Like I said, daily. It's pretty fucking cool, especially hanging out with Adrian, man. He's fucking awesome. And his research really takes it to a whole new level, because then you get the theory, or I guess you could say theory, that Enki, his side, and he would be the Prometheus, the serpent in the garden. Poseidon, Ptah from Egypt. His side of the family, being from Orion, were reptilian. And the Syrian Anunnaki, being Enlil, or and I've said this before, you get the E from the beginning of his name and the L at the end of his name, and you take out the N. Yeah, you know what I mean. The E and the L, and he is, in these stories, when you read about El and Saturn and Cronus, he is this deity, because his sons are the deities of the suns. They all, the archetypes line up, and there's no way that's all just a coincidence, right? I mean, we could be getting psyop, but it would be on a massive scale. I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of, I guess depending on, maybe some religious people might not believe this, but it does seem like, and even that most religious people would believe this, but they would just usually be like, oh, somehow these are all variations of my religion because I have the right one. But generally they all take inspiration. So especially as you go further back in time, it makes sense that that they would have so much crossover in archetypes, because it's like they're kind of expressing the same, similar things. Like if you look at it, if you're of the belief that, Judaism used to be part of a monotheistic structure, and Yahweh was one of them, then broke off and kind of became more monotheistic and became their own thing. It's like, obviously that's, things transforming. That would be one way of things moving from one thing to another. And I feel like if you look at like things like ancient Greece with those gods, it kind of makes sense. A lot of those gods had their own temples. They had their own followers, and ones that would be, kind of more, into that specific deity. So it's not that crazy that certain deities would get more of a cult following and break off and do their own thing.
And over time, their names would just change. Yeah. The same kind of worship would be going on, but their names would change. And there's a couple aspects I could get into on that, but I wanted to say, so the Orion side might have been reptilian. There's a theory that the Syrian side may have been more canine in nature, or like dogmen or some shit. Yeah.
Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, when you get into the Lost Book of Enki, and I think we covered this on Enki Part 2 on our Elohim etymology, they do these experiments. Enki, Thoth, his son, and his sister.
Thoth also, isn't that also That's a fucking. I believe it comes up a lot in like Atlantean mythology, and it's
He was
also, I
in
believe, a
Atlantean
Egyptian
king
god.
priest,
He
and
was
then
an
he went
Egyptian
into
god,
the
too.
land of Kim or Egypt, and he ruled there for 16,000 years until his older brother Marduk came in and was like, "Yo, bitch, get the fuck out the way." And then they started the first Pyramid War, which there were two. But Thoth, his original name was Ningishita. This was his Sumerian name. And he was really just like the OG alchemist. I mean, this is who the later incarnation of Hermes would have been. Thoth, Mercury, Tahuti. And then he went into South America, I guess manifesting maybe. I don't know if he could like shapeshift into like a winged serpent, or if you could take the ancient alien theory and say that he was in some kind of winged bird ship. That's pretty fucking cool. You know what I mean? Like, to think about that. Like, I see you got hella comic books behind you, Jose. So like, I could definitely tell why you'd be into the Anunnaki, bro. Yeah.
Oh yeah, fun stuff.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
Yeah.
But they basically created these trials of these beings that they collected out of the Abzu, which is described to be in South Africa, and which they called the Black Hued Land. Go figure. And so this was the first gold mine. The mythos of the story is that they came here to mine gold, because without the monoatomic gold being shot through their atmosphere and basically existing in their air, allowing them to live longer, allowing them to grow taller, without that, they would obviously probably become more like us. And because when they came to Earth, they started getting a lot older real fast. And their sons or their grandsons would come from Nibiru to see them, and they would be it's crazy, dude. Sorry.
They'd come back older, is what you
yeah, basically.
Yeah, they'd come back older than their parents or whatever.
Yeah. And they didn't even know this. It seemed like they just realized it. Like, when you're reading the story, it's like a surprise to them. And but the story, okay, so there's another thing that's very similar to the Bible, and this is where you get all the incest of the Old Testament, is that these beings were literally just like having sex with their daughters, with their sisters, with their aunt, their cousin. Like, they were on some real like Mississippi shit, dude. Like, real like fucked up.
Some Targaryen shit. Trying to
some Targaryen.
Yeah. And so then you get to the Old Testament, and they're just doing the same thing. And it's like, where did they learn these behaviors from? I mean, I guess it would come naturally if you were just, I guess, living out the evolution theory.
If you accept the younger dryad theory, I mean, you would think that would actually be it would become a commonplace thing, considering his population got so fucking low that it's kind of like, yeah, well, sorry, now you got to fuck your cousin. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I mean, you think that probably happened again?
The good of the race.
Yeah. I mean,
oh my god.
I know it seems like it's heading that way soon. Yeah.
We'll see. Well, all right, we're gonna transition over to the call-in portion of the show.
Hell yeah, dude! I forgot y'all did that.
Oh yeah, no. The second half of the show is call-in for patrons. If you
awesome,
guys are
dude.
Patrons of me or Austin, we drop the StreamYard link every week, so you guys can join in as a talking head along us if you want to. Also, I'll drop the phone number. You guys can call in here a second, and also I'll just kind of interact with the chat. But before we get into that, I gotta bring it up. There we go. Old Nadeau's back with us. Today's episode is brought to you by Nadeau Shave Co. Are you tired of that razor burn, irritation, and bullshit ingrown hairs caused by that nonsensical multi-blade crap? Big Shave's been psyoping the American people for decades with their expensive multi-blade razor scam. Return traditional shave. You know the expensive crap? This is good stuff. Shave like your granddad used to. The twist to open. I've been meaning to. I actually brought it along with me today. Look at this thing. This thing's cool. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
That is
it's
nice.
double-sided. You can see if you guys can see, there's blades on both sides. This thing's pretty nifty. I dig it. I just shaved off my mustache the other day with it because I don't like my mustache. It looks fucking stupid. But then the problem is now I look like some fucking, some dude from, where are all those Nurmagomedov, all those UFC fuckers, where those guys are from?
Kazakhstan?
Yeah, I look like a Kazakhstanian now.
Dagestan, yeah.
Dagestan,
Hey, bro.
there you go.
You heard that Habib got his dojo got raided.
Got raided,
Yeah.
Oh,
And then there's all these rumors that he owes like $3 million in back taxes to, and like right after he confronts Donald Trump at the Dustin Poirier Islam UFC card, and he's like, "Hey, in the Israel-Palestine conflict," and Trump's like, "Yeah, definitely, I'll end it as soon as I get it," and then immediately goes and calls Biden a Palestinian. It's just hilarious to me, but anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
As he goes and kisses the wall. Sorry.
The standard issue includes one traditional safety razor and a box of 100 stainless steel razor blades. $75 allows you to shave for the entire year, or if you shave on the reg, get this Quarter Shave Club. You pay only 25 cents per replacement blade. They also got some new what do I call it? Like soaps. And stuff to kind of build up a lather for shaving here soon. I have some coming in the mail, so I can't really endorse it at this moment, but I'm sure it's good stuff. When it comes, I'll let you know how it is. But this is a great company. If you guys saw the episode where I had Nadeau on, his origin story comes from him refusing the COVID mandates while he was in the military. He got booted out and started this company. So if you want to support people, that doing that kind of stuff, living that life. That's what you got to do. Use code Jose for 10% off your entire order. Support them because they support us and because they're all about that life. So let's get back into it. All right, guys. If you want to call in at 941-281-5857. But we're going to start going through the chat in the meantime. But, just kind of start a topic of conversation while I kind of, peek through the chat to see what's there for questions. We were talking about ancient beings. We had an ancient being recently rear its head up. We had the debates. And so I just kind of, thoughts between the two of you. I mean, I think it's just, I'm of the opinion, I was literally watching the debate. I didn't watch the entire thing. I watched bits and pieces. But as I'm watching it, I'm like, I was kind of like, halfway through, I was like, this seems weird that this even happened. But then the question about the age/mental health or whatever that was then followed up by the January 6th question, which was a complete slam dunk for Trump. It was like they set him up. Those two questions back to back is like they set Biden up. And it's funny because everyone was surmising when this started, all the rules that they had about this debate, they were weird, but like the mics and stuff, everyone was like, "Oh, they're trying to fucking hem up Trump."
Side
and it's
by
like,
side.
Yeah, but now in retrospect, I'm like, it's the exact opposite. Like, yes, if they had wanted to intervene and with those rules, they could have helped out Biden. But because they didn't and just let him fucking, just kind of, fucking drown on his own, and made him sit in silence with his own words. It just kind of gave him rope to hang himself with, and that seems to be what happens. It almost seems intentional, and
he
they're
shit
ready
the bed,
to get out of
dude.
him. Yeah,
like you literally shit the bed.
It was rough.
That was an absolute humiliation ritual. Like honestly, to me, and then to have the New York Times article in tandem running parallel with this complete, it felt like a strategic exposure. That way they could, lay the foundation, lay the groundwork for clearly replacing Biden. I mean, it's so obvious in my mind. I mean, we're seeing all the different names being thrown out now. I mean, even Tucker just mentioned Gretchen Whitmer I mean,
I fucking hope they run Whitmer. I
Right?
want them to run Whitmer. Whitmer is like the fucking move. Actually, what I want is I'd like her to go VP, and then if we get Vivek as a VP, you can imagine that debate.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
She
that would be
fucking
ridiculous.
she kidnapped herself. dude.
She
Yeah,
kidnapped
right?
herself, man.
yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, who do y'all think would run in place of Biden?
Dude,
I think they're fucked.
I
just feel like they're at this point, and like I almost feel like they're just accepting that hey, we'll get Trump. You know, like I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what the move is to get a Democrat in office.
What do you think about him
the
being the
debate-
Antichrist?
It's possible.
It's
Possible.
very possible.
Very possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
I
considered
honestly,
it. Me and my wife.
My number one takeaway from the debate was Trump will be the next president, and that this was a strategic soft coup, basically, and that the Democrats will replace him. And I don't know if they will officially, but in my mind, my perspective is they're going to attempt to replace him. I think it would be wise to try and use a candidate like Whitmer now, only because I think it would be conceptually, I think Trump is meant to win this election. I think it might have even been an agreement before the fucking during 2016 when he became president. Who knows, honestly? Like this at this juncture, I am questioning everything. Only because the entire framework, the entire structure of the debate itself was so heavily in favor of Trump in every facet. It blew me away. I couldn't believe Jake Tapper's questions. I couldn't believe that
It's never been like that, right?
Brother. And
they've always attacked him and attacked him.
Yes.
And now they're just like, come on through.
Yeah.
Can we suck your dick? Like,
I'm telling you,
yeah, man. It's like it's set up on a stage almost.
Political theater, man.
Yeah, it's like you're watching. You're like, I think I know what scene comes next. I think.
Right.
Let's see. Yeah, man.
Yeah. No doubt in my mind. And you know, I mean, when you have like what AIPAC basically largely supported every single leading candidate on both sides of the political spectrum, right? And that's even being reported on like MSNBC and shit. And like nobody bats an eye, dude. Nobody bats an eye, right? At this point, like, I don't know. I'm starting to wonder how much, like, it's so very clear how much control that Israel and AIPAC and the Likud party have over American politics. But yeah, we definitely need some sort of answer as to why that's the case. And so
they spend how many millions do they spend on Jamal Bowman or against Jamal Bowman? It's something insane.
A shitload. And then they get in the wandering eye guy.
Yeah, they had Tim Pool the next day saying it was because Jews showed out, and you're like, what? Like, I mean, I guess sort of, not really. I mean, I really have a hard time believing that that's infinitesimally small of a population was what really made the difference.
Right.
But or it was really just the bajillions of fucking dollars that got put into campaigning. I mean, don't get me wrong, Jamal Bowman's a fucking retard. So like,
that's the guy who pulled the alarm, right?
Oh yeah, bro.
So don't get me wrong, it wasn't like it was like some crazy feat by them, but just the amount of money they put into it, and the fact that he was one of the few tepidly anti-Israel people. I mean, that kind of said something to me. I mean, no, AIPAC's fucking nuts. But yeah.
And then the staunch pro-Israel wandering eye comes in to replace him. But yeah, it fits in perfectly with the geopolitical agenda at play right now in this very moment. And so, I mean, it's like, I think it's just so outrageous. For example, like I just read Dave DeCamp's article about Israel's, potential invasion of Lebanon. And they've been saying this whole time, if you force a ceasefire, we're going to escalate in Lebanon, right? And then now they're saying that they're going to escalate in Lebanon no matter, right?
Yeah.
And no matter the case. And so it's just like, this has just consistently been, the ultimate end result of this conflict from day one has been to consistently move the goalposts. Obviously, it's been proven now. I mean, they were training. They had exercises and training exercises, plotting this mass casualty event. And you have Israeli commanders who have come out on the record and been threatened, right, to be basically fired or whatever the case is, and for going public with that information and that knowledge. But to have that on the record at all, right, and to have like Israeli publications even report on it. And again, what did we see in the debate? Who could grift harder for Israel at a certain point? It was like that was Trump's number one. I mean, at least that was a major campaign promise is I'm going to let them finish the job. His number one criticism of Biden is he didn't give him enough, right?
Yeah.
And all Biden could do is say, well, I gave him all those bombs, just not the heavy bombs, like, or whatever the fuck he said. But it's just
more than that. Yeah, man.
Dude, it's ridiculous, brother. And
by the way, I do have a super chat from my homie Abrogate Authoritarians. He says, for $2, Tim Pool's a dim tool. Okay.
Hell yeah, man.
Agreed.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a big. I don't think he's really any political philosophy genius or really even all that spectacular, to be clear. Although I do think he has there's some he has his redeeming qualities in some ways. But yes, I get what you mean. But I did want to top brought up looking at the connection between meth and contact with entities. Dr. Jerry Marzinski, and I know that's in relation to schizophrenia, and I do find this to be an interesting topic. Like if you're someone who digs deep into fucking parapolitics and stuff, it seems to be any time there's a conspiracy that has a substantive MK Ultra connection, there seems to be always meth as well involved. I believe who was in the fucking Columbine kids? There was meth. Fucking was it OKC? There was meth. I want to say Jack Ruby was using meth, and there's other ones I'm forgetting now. But it also, from what I recall, when I was digging into MK Ultra, maybe this was Chaos, maybe this was Poison in Chief. I don't remember where I got this from, but I do believe that was one of the original drugs they were using when they were doing MK Ultra research. And I think there's something to that. But
meth and LSD. Probably.
Yeah, meth and LSD were the big ones. And yeah, I think there's, and and you could say entities, or you could just understand it as DID, dissociative identity disorder, where you're now talking, which, I mean, I guess that's kind of like a difference without a real distinction. It's kind of in a similar, if you have created a separate, personality within yourself, especially if you're able to interact with that entity, that is an entity. So that is essentially an ego separate from your own in a certain sense, although it's kind of also yours as well. It's confusing, but they essentially shatter your brain to where you have different personalities within you. So yeah, and you can call those
pretty crazy. With the trauma, it's also like the alters will maintain this certain age when they were developed and created. It's like, honestly, it's insane. Reading the X dossier during the Dutroux case when I was researching that on my own.
Dude, that shit's so crazy, bro.
Holy shit.
I had done an episode about a month and a half ago, me and my boy Odd Fellows. Mark Dutroux's piece of shit, man.
Fucking A, brother.
Yeah.
That's the darkest thing I've ever researched.
Yeah, that's some pretty dark shit, dude. Yeah, that 100%. Whole Belgian royalty, whole so fucking sketchy.
Connected to a satanic cult that worships
Temple of Abraxas, right? Or
the
Abraxas order.
Abraxas, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the chick who was the high grand priestess of the Church of Satan was his wife, right? The guy who started the Abraxas order.
The whole note was to Dutroux's accomplice. Weinstein, I think, was his name. It was like something.
Holy shit, Austin! Hold on, I'm hold on. Sorry, I'm gonna get schizo for a second.
Go ahead.
That's
what it's about.
in my notes, yeah. Okay, so I had this about Dutroux, and I literally have Bernard Weinstein.
There you go. Hell yeah.
Written right underneath his name, but I didn't have anything in there.
Every fucking time.
Brother. Yeah.
He is Dutroux's accomplice that helped, along with the police officers, allegedly conduct the kidnappings and abductions of Effia Lambrix and the other girl.
The two girls that were found. Now, he had killed 5 other ones, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so the guy's name was Francis de Smet, who founded the Abraxas Institute in 1990 with his lover, Dominique Kindermans.
Yep.
Dominique Kindermans.
I read that name for sure.
The Wicca Grand Priestess Supreme of the Belgian Church of Satan. I mean, if they're not trafficking kids and fucking them, then I don't know who is. Right?
Shit, man. Yeah. Especially when they're performing, sacrificial rituals like the chase, rituals to Moloch and shit, right? Where, they would literally sick dogs
kids in the woods
in the woods. Fucking A,
Same thing at Bohemian Grove. They did that shit probably out there at that castle, right?
Yeah. That's exactly
the
where
Chateau de Emeroy.
It's exactly where the claim. Yes,
that's some dark dude. That's one of like the first cults. And dude, the fucking Order of the Solar Temple.
They called them pink ballets, dude. That's what they called them.
Really?
Yeah, those parties at the castle.
Pink ballets.
Yeah, and they used them to basically help blackmail certain government officials into having to back different NATO legislation or whatever the fuck the case was, and it was just another tool, right? To just amazing to me, man. But yeah, the OTS, what the fuck was that? Like when I was reading about all of that. I
just listened to y'all's episode today, and it's crazy because I had seen that little doc that was on YouTube, the real shitty one from like 1990.
Yep.
And bro, I remember it being like 6 a.m. and I was watching that. It was when I first started getting into cults and shit years ago. Yeah, man, I just found that crazy that y'all were talking about that. I hadn't heard anyone else talk about that but you two, just like the Mark Dutroux shit. Man, that's cool that y'all looked into that and
it's all Austin.
There you go.
I'm just riding off his ass.
You're great, dude. Yeah, man. No, y'all fucking kill it, bro.
I have Snoxery. It says the Anunnaki and fallen angel discussion is all around the time of the Tower of Babel and before the various languages and histories began to develop as distinct mythologies. That kind of makes sense to me. I don't know if you've dug into that. I mean, I don't know if there's a myth within Sumerian mythology that kind of corresponds with Tower of Babel, but it would make sense if there was some sort of centralized thing and they started breaking off.
So this is when I think they went covert. Mm-hmm. You could only find them inside the earth, maybe, because regardless if the earth is flat or round, it's fucking hollow. That's my belief. But yeah, before then, the veil was a lot thinner, and they were probably just like walking around freely as like 12-foot beings with their hog hanging out and
hanging dog,
just grabbing up women. Because
the
Nephilim, you had the Nephilim, and then the Nephil were the children of the Nephilim, and then the children of the Nephil were the Eljo, Eljo, and so you have giant, and then I guess whatever you'd have after that, probably some cryptid, because when you read the book of Enoch, it says that they mated with the beast of the land, the fish of the sea, the birds in the sky, and all creeping things. So interpret creeping things how you want. To me, that's something that either creeps on the, like, I don't know, like a reptile maybe, or a fucking cryptid being, like something that creeps in the night maybe. I don't know. but I find it pretty interesting.
All right, I have a question. I don't know what the fuck this is, but maybe you do. I'm trying to identify the 3 to 9 Quartzel, Erdal, etc. from the Emerald Tablets. I think I've heard of the Emerald Tablets. It sounds familiar. I think they're the planets. Do these names pop up in any other text? Does that sound familiar with you? I have no idea what the fuck that is.
Quartzal, Erdal.
Yeah,
that doesn't. That's not Sumerian. I don't think it's Assyrian either. That may be. I don't know, man. I'll have to look into that.
Oh, all right. All right. We were talking about APAC earlier. There has been we have one hero in that's old Thomas Massey, and he's been railing hard against Israel, and I don't know if it's Israel, just APAC particularly. And he just suffered a great tragedy. I haven't heard anything. I know a lot of people have been conspiracizing about that there could be something going on. Now, I will say, if he comes back and he's all of a sudden soft on APAC, or
I'm going to be real
if anything,
concerned.
I'm gonna be like, yeah, that something happened, and even then, I wouldn't even blame him. If something like that happens, it's like, yeah, okay, it's time to shut your fucking mouth. You got important people in your life you need to take care of.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess crazy. I don't. It's weird. I feel like there's been although I guess it is a private family situation, so I also do find it's a weird conundrum we're in now, because there's nothing that supports that anything happened, but I think anyone who has any pattern recognition goes, that's weird, but you definitely do need to wait for something. But there's definitely a lot of people who jump the gun, and it does feel gross. I'll admit it does feel gross. Right. All the people surmising that Israel killed his wife, and I'm not even saying that's the case. It's just I wouldn't be the least bit surprised.
Right,
it's just
right.
Yeah,
wild.
It's just the link is clearly because he said that extraordinary thing on Tucker the other day, within 2 weeks, right after saying that, at least he was speaking in terms of, I believe the context was, he doesn't know how it works with the Democrats, but this is how it works with Republicans, is that every Republican in Congress has to run things by their AIPAC handler, their Israeli handler, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then within 2 weeks, there's this tragedy that occurs directly, as far as his wife. I didn't mean to laugh, but I'm just saying, like, it's
uncanny. Yeah, it's kind of
timing's extraordinary. Yeah.
Yes.
So that alone, at least, of course, anyone who swims in these circles and kind of knows how business works, the status quo, it would not surprise me at all. I think that's the main point. But yeah, I mean, that's a little bit outrageous. But by the way, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, is what.
Is that who he was talking about?
Yeah, I think that's what they meant, actually. And I was going to say that, actually. But
yeah, okay, so the Emerald Tablets, I actually have this copy of them. I actually fuck with the Hermetic Principles, because it's basically what Christ taught.
Right. Now, the Hermetic Principles they're deeply involved with the Theosophical Society and things of that nature, right? And
I read a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. Didn't the Tool Society, which was Hitler and the Nazi occult, were super involved with, leading up to, the Nazi SS takeover of Germany. And I believe that they were very much into Helena Blavatsky, right? And
the Ascended Masters and stuff.
The Ascended Masters. Yeah. Same thing in the OTS.
Germain.
Yes, and they believed in a reincarnated Saint Germain at Mount Shasta or some shit.
Yes.
And the OTS believed in that.
Dude, that's crazy you brought that up, bro. So there was this Coast to Coast episode with Richard Serrett, I think. I don't know, may have been George Norrie. But it's about this guy who goes up on Mount Shasta, and he talks about how he meets Christ. And then it's revealed to him that it's Inky or whatever, like the Sumerian being Inky. Apparently he was like disguising himself as this Christ figure or whatever. And the guy's like, I know no one wants to hear this, but Inky is Lucifer. And it just makes me think that that's probably Saint Germain too. Like maybe, I don't know. There's a connection there with Mount Shasta, because you have the lost continent of Mu. It's Mu, Lemuria, that in theory sank and went under California and came up inside of the mountain.
Jesus.
And that could be interpreted physically or etherically. But yeah, Lucifer just means light bearer. It really was the original name of Venus, the morning star. Now, I do believe it's become an egregore of some sort through people worshiping it as a deity and people in fear of it, referring to it as a deity. Satan, it's the same thing with Satan. Satan means adversary. So you have all these people living in trauma and spiritual trauma and fear of either what they don't know or what's been taught to them at a very young age. And this is on all sides, all in a lot of religions. But yeah, man. I really do think.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, man. You're fine. I lost track.
I thought you lost the thread for a second. So
I kind of lost it for a second, but I'm getting back there.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
No, you're fine, Jose.
Oh, I was going to say, no one's talking, this is from Nicholas Lee, no one's talking about the very early precedent-breaking date, first and only presidential debate before the DNC election, bypassing the people who they super delegate into the spot. Yeah, I guess the idea is, since it's right before the convention, they can kind of pull a slick one and pull someone in there. I guess it's just a matter of who. I'm still hoping it's Whitmer. That would be the fucking move. Because it'd almost be like, I feel like if they ran Whitmer, this would be, if anything, leaning more into that they want to hook up Trump, because that's what I'm expecting, to be honest. Like, because I think what they want is Biden to take most of the political damage, right, running throughout this time with Trump, and then that way they won't leave enough time, right, for too much, I would say, political capital to be gained by Trump in as far as like directly targeting Gretchen Whitmer, if that were to be who the replacement was. But I'm just saying, like, I think it serves them better, right? As far as I honestly think it does serve them better to to kind of hang him out to dry slowly, gradually, get more and more people on board, and then, right, like the Indiana Jones meme, you make the replacement. The swap out happens very, very quickly, but it's a it's going to be another populist candidate, right? That I think will at least have some sort of political capital within their ideological aisle, as far as that is concerned, and will have enough to at least garner a vote against Trump, right? Which really doesn't take them much at this point for a lot of people who are ideologically opposed or just so entrenched in their own right and within the paradigm of the political spectrum, right? So I that was kind of how I was interpreting what the feeling of how this is going, but it's mainly just my gut, honestly. Like, that's what it seems that way. But because that was so embarrassing, man, and to see Jill Biden like talking him up afterward, that was so shameful. That was hilarious at the same time. Like, I love
you did so good, Joe. You answered all the questions. Like, my God, could you imagine just that is the representation of of the highest political attainable office, right? But AMORC, the Rosicrucian Order, they allegedly they had a founder named Harvey Spencer Lewis who published Lemuria, the lost continent of the Pacific, and apparently, in addition to a frontispiece depicting Mount Shasta, included detailed information linking Mount Shasta to the lost continent of Lemuria and the survival of masters supposedly still living there. And that was all a part of those divine nine that met with Breyer to have him reestablish a Templar order, a Templar resurgence in the New Age, to usher in the Age of Aquarius, the Aeon of Horus, right? All these different Aleister Crowley, theosophical notions and ideas, right?
Yeah, that 9 ties into the Order of 9 Angles too.
Fucking
I think, right? Yeah, man. And you also have your 9 Anunnaki. Well, there's 7 and then there's 9. They're interpreted. Well, I guess the 7 were the mothers of creation, but the 9 Anunnaki were the main ones who were worshipped, and I think are still worshipped today as these archetypes and these demonic forces, because that's what they've become over time. Now they're so dark that it's like impossible to probably comprehend. But what I was saying earlier before I went off in my own head, my autism hit me. I was talking about Satan. Satan just means adversary. And people give Satan so much power by just fear that it, like I said, is probably created an egregore of some sort. Now, there are Satan deities. There's multiple Satans. Set would be one. Semyaza would be one. Samael would be one. And these are all different archetypes, all different beings, but all from the same pantheon of fallen angels.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Right, I got another super chat. From my buddy Abrogate. Authoritarians. I've seen people lose their minds on meth, like really delusional for weeks. It's a perfect drug for manipulating someone into an alternate reality. Yeah, it makes you lose your grip on reality, so it would be pretty easy to fuck with someone with that. All right, we have Big Hands. Fuck the debate. What about the recent updated version of the NDAA? Automatically rolling men 18-25. I don't know. Personally, I don't find that one that crazy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a fan, but you already got to sign up for it. Like it's part of the, I mean, I don't know if it's like one of those things that like, all right, I've gotten jury duty before, and obviously it's for legal reasons, a joke. I just completely ignored them, and I never got bugged again. I don't know if you can do the same thing with the draft. Like, I don't know if like when you turn 18, if you just never fucking sign up for it and don't give a shit, like if no one will ever fuck with you. Like, I don't know how that, like who actually checks. I don't trust the bureaucracy. I really feel like most people probably could just not and get away with it. But I don't fucking know. Who fucking really tries that? So I don't know how big of a deal it is that they're automatically enrolling people. I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd rather they didn't. I'm not a fan of the draft. So I don't know.
Weren't you in the military?
Yeah, I was active duty for 11 years. Yeah.
What kind of military were you?
Air Force. I was an aircraft mechanic.
Air Force. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service, Jose.
You don't have to. I didn't do that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not. If anything, I like see it as like a waste of my time. I wish I.
Yeah, I mean, I just people don't want their kids going and dying for Israel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Or for Palestine. You know, like it sucks because there's children dying. But it sucks that it's happening on both sides, but. I mean, this has been funded by the same people who have funded everything. I'm sorry if y'all hear my daughter screaming. Y'all don't hear that, do you?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I hear it now, but
yeah, now that you said it, yeah.
By the way, someone asked if we're gonna get super chats on YouTube. I got demonetized forever ago on fucking YouTube, so I don't know if I'll ever get that back. sorry if you want to support, you can do Patreon or you can do super chats on Rumble, and I'll be sure to read them. But otherwise, on these, just ask a question, and I'm just scrolling through. Problem is, most people just say things, and it's like, if it's not a question, I'm usually not going to bring it up, or if it's not something that I'm like, I can't talk about this. Like, for example, this isn't really a question, but Sarah Everard in the Templar temples is a really interesting deep dive. Seems very Dutro adjacent from Dr. Kubo's Feel Good Fun Time Medicine Show. Say what'd you say?
Oh, Templar tunnels.
Yeah, I've never heard of them. I don't know if that.
I haven't either.
Yeah, I haven't heard of not the Templar tunnels.
All right,
I'll have to definitely have to write that one down. Right,
Yeah.
but
it wouldn't surprise me if the Templar had
not. Not at all, man. But I mean, Set, right? Like, we all know who established the Temple of Set. At this point, it's Michael Aquino. Yeah.
Well, real quick, someone said that's disrespectful and retarded master if you're saying he sacrificed her for fame. Like, I don't think anyone's saying that.
No one said he sacrificed her.
Yeah.
Talking about.
I don't know if it's just a misunderstanding or I was not saying that.
Clearly, my only consideration was the timing was strange, so therefore the underlying implication is that potentially Israel could be responsible for some sort of targeted assassination, heart attack gun sort of scenario where they sort of execute someone closest to Massey to get him to finally fall into place behind the agenda, which is to ultimately support Israel blindly, right? So clearly,
way.
The only reason.
Dr. Kubo's Feel Good Fun Time Medicine Show says Sirhan Sirhan was a member of AMORC, the Rosicrucian.
Oh yeah.
For real?
Yeah. He actually went, brother. He went. He was affiliated with this guy that was also not only involved with the Rosicrucian order, but also he was a member of the Process Church and worked at the Ambassador Hotel in the kitchen, right, where RFK was assassinated.
Oh, man.
And Sirhan pulled the trigger in a trance, right? Which is it? Who is it? I always get Lisa Peace and Wendy Painting. It's freaking Lisa Peace, right? That wrote the RFK book, right? And I accidentally do that too often. But anyway, she really killed it. She thinks that he only fired blanks, right? And that and it's very. It seems to be that's the case, right? Like, it was Thane Eugene Cesar moonlighting as a security guard who was
people that are the closest to him, just like JFK. There's theories that it was the driver.
I've heard those theories.
Yeah, and that Jackie, like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
All
right, we have from Fire Pixie. Didn't Solomon get the 72 demons to build the first temple, Jerusalem? What's up with that? Now, I don't recall if that's in the Old Testament or if that's in some Judaic books or if that's... I believe Solomon's also in some of Islam's literature, so I'm not sure where that one's in.
King Solomon, was he the son of David?
Something like that, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. He was the wisest man to ever live. He was the first Freemason. His temple was the first Freemasonic temple, built by Hiram Abiff, who was later killed by 3 initiates or men who were trying to become initiates. That's the whole ritual of them killing you going in the grave and then being reborn a Freemason, right? And I'm not a Mason, guys. But yeah, man, he used Solomonic magic, his own form of divination, to access forces from another dimension. Either that or it was just energy that was here already. left here by these deities or supplied by these deities. I mean, if you still got to look at the whole alien aspect, that means that they had technology, like real-time technology that could do things in an instant. Fallen angel technology, just like the UFOs you see today, almost.
All right, we got, he says Solomon's and the demon/temple thing started as a legend. It became fleshed out in later magical texts such as Goetia, which is written by Dr. Rudd, if I remember correctly. Said there are Arabic grimoires of a similar vein. Yeah, that's why I said I thought it was maybe Islam, because I do recall it being jinns specifically they're referring to, and jinns is more of an Islamic thing. So I that was how I recalled it, because I don't believe that's in the Old Testament, any of that. So yeah, I believe that was a somewhat Islamic thing. I don't fucking know, but yeah, I've heard that a lot. Also, that's where you get things like the Seal of Solomon and stuff, and a lot of the weird magic stuff that you come to. Although the Seal of Solomon, I don't even think was actually. I think that's not even necessarily. I don't know if they actually that is the Seal of Solomon. I think that's just what they call it, the Star of Remphan, to try to.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, it's just interchangeable.
Yeah, but my point being is, maybe I'm wrong. But I believe it's not really actually shown to be the Seal of Solomon. It's just that's what they kind of interpreted it as later, to almost kind of distract from the Remphan things. So,
well, the triangles represent, if you want to get gay for a second, the triangles represent the upside triangle represents the divine masculine, and then the upside down triangle represents the divine feminine. Just like your eye
above, so below type thing.
Yeah. And then just like your eye, your right eye is considered your eye of Ra, your left eye is considered your eye of Horus. Feminine, masculine. Like I said, it's kind of gay, but yeah, I mean, it's just ancient knowledge. It could be interpreted differently today. But yeah, man, it's pretty fascinating stuff. But I got sidetracked again, dude.
All right,
I went off on a tangent talking about feminine, masculine, and
yeah. The hexagram's also a sun symbol, as we were saying. But all right, we've kind of run through. Also, hexagram.
I guess I was explaining that
666 number also associated with the sun. But all right, guys, I think we're at a good spot to kind of roll out here. Jules, you want to let people know where they can find you at? Let them know what you're working on these days. And
yeah, man.
The likes.
Gray Pill Podcast, guys. Instagram, GREYPILLED_podcast. I'm on Twitter or X at GREYPILLED_pod. I'm on Rumble, Spotify, YouTube. I'm on BitChute. It's all Gray Pilled Podcast. I try to do a show every week, like every Thursday or Friday, just a live on my channel where I go through like some Manly P. Hall book and discuss it somewhat, or I'll break down some cult or talk about the Anunnaki a little bit. I also do Schizo News Network every Saturday night with Nate from Reality Czars and my buddy Cody from Oddfellows brand. Got Conspiracy Extremists coming on this weekend. Nice. So it's going to be a good time. Yeah, man. I'm also hosting it for the next 2 weeks because Nate's on his little anniversary getaway with his wife, which is great. So if anyone wants to come on, just hit me up. Also got an episode of Elohim Etymology, episode 7, I believe, on Marduk. Drop part 1, obviously, this week. That's how most of the episodes are going to be. It's going to be like 3 to 4 parts to each. Me and my co-host Adrian West. I'm going to grift his book, Pantheon 1: The Golden Veins. Let's see where you can see it. There you go. You can get it on Amazon. He's my co-host, and he is a very smart guy. He brings a ton of new ideas to stuff that's been there for a while. And so it's fascinating to delve further into those topics. Also, I do a show with the Paranoid American, shout out Thomas, called Sound Science, where we bring someone on and they kind of pick out like 4 to 5 of their favorite albums. And y'all could come on, dude. I'm sure we'd love to have y'all on.
Awesome.
And we kind of break down if there's any symbolism behind it, or like what it means to you, or just to listen to music and just kick it. We have a couple things that we do together. So y'all go to paranoidamerican.com. Be sure to support him. And yeah, man.
Hell yeah.
I had a blast coming on, dude. Sorry if I seem so tired, man. Like I said, worked today.
You're good, buddy.
So, but no, I definitely wasn't gonna say no to y'all asking me, man. So
yeah, we appreciate having you. Austin, you want to let people know where they can find you at?
For sure, brother. Yeah, so you guys can support me on my Buzzsprout or my Patreon. They're both at the Underclass podcast. You can find my podcast on basically all audio streaming platforms for now, and follow me at Underclass Pod on Twitter, at the Underclass Podcast on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, I have the No Way Jose show. You can find me on YouTube, all major Arbocators, and Rumble as well. By the way, everyone like this. Olivia Ann saying, FYI, YouTube won't let me like the stream. And if you can't like it on YouTube...
That's my wife.
Oh, okay, cool. And if you can't like it, go over to Rumble and like it there. Help boost this, share this around.
Sure.
I do want to give a shout out to my sponsors who help me do what I do at patreon.com, just No Way Jose 2020. I have my co-hosts on Targeting at Targeting Toad. I have at Abrogate D's. I have at ZOVERACK. At _ Infinite Zeal. Then Jacob Daniel of the Biblical Anarchy podcast. Follow him at Biblical Anarchy. Then the homie Tim Tuttle at Jolly on Klebold. He's been really digging in the Sandy Hook stuff. I need to bring him back on here soon.
It, brother.
Yeah. And then also my homie Will Bell, who makes this delicious rabbit eye blueberry wine. It's great stuff. Follow me on Twitter at Targeting Jose. Join us again next week on Tuesday at 9:30. It'll be me and Austin. Yeah, hop in, call in, get in the chat. Make this. If you interact with it, it'll kind of. You guys get to guide the conversation. And with that, we are out.